Hi, everyone. My name is Dominic Diaz, and I am a part of our Themed Entertainment Association student organization at the University of Southern California. We want to start off by saying thank you to everyone who is watching, and we're incredibly excited to present a full day of Halloween and themed entertainment fun for all of you to enjoy. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my colleague from TEA at USC, Natalie Swegler, as she hosts a conversation with Delusion's Jon Braver. Thank you, guys.
Hello. Hey, Jon, how are you?
I've seen better days.
Seen better days? I know. This pandemic's really hitting you, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, the plague mask is fine.
Okay, good. Just want to give a little special pre-Halloween shout out to everybody. Hello. A little bit of love.
We love it.
How you doing?
Yeah, so to start us off, could you just explain to everyone what Delusion is for anyone who may be unfamiliar?
Yeah, let me get this stupid thing off first. There we go. Oh, that's worse. Well, first of all, thanks for having me over here. This is always a crazy joy. Sorry we're not all together. Delusion, if you're not familiar with it, it is a it's sort of we branded it as the original interactive horror theater. Started in 2011. It's basically placing you as an audience inside of a story, a living, breathing other world that we like to create. And it started, the impetus was basically role-playing games that I used to play a lot. So I really wanted to bring them into the real world. So we started in 2011, and it was really nothing like it at the time, except Sleep No More on the East Coast. And it just sort of blew up from there. Everybody wanted to play characters in a real world. So a lot of people say it feels like you're inside of a movie, because the structure is very narrative, hence our discussion here.
Yes, having done Delusion before, I can attest to that myself. And Delusion is so unique as immersive theater. So could you give us a definition for what immersive theater is and what you believe makes something truly immersive?
Yeah, I thought about that as you sent me the question, and I always get asked that question: what is immersive? And first of all, your first part of that, what's immersive theater? Immersive theater is not just what we do; it's theater. Theater is, you can take out the word immersive, and theater is supposed to be that. It's supposed to transport you somewhere else. So it doesn't matter what medium it is, as long as you're transported, it's immersive. You could be transported in a book. I've never been more transported than reading a book, you know. So, but immersive theater has a special little area in there where, concerning what we do, it's very much taking it to the many steps later in terms of many steps after, in terms of really giving you agency, giving you character, giving you some kind of emotional hook to this, and it's placing you inside the story and giving you purpose. So that's really what an immersive theater to me is about, if it's participatory theater. But immersive theater doesn't have to be interactive. It doesn't have to be participatory, as I said, as long as it transports you. But what we do is, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, so what inspired you to create the interactive experience of Delusion? Was it going to the theater as a kid? Was it reading books?
Excuse me. It was really the role-playing games and the fantasy novels that I used to read. It's really those two things. When role-playing games came out, I'm aging myself a bit, but it was changed my world completely, because I looked around my world and I was like, this isn't as much fun as what I'm doing here in the role-playing game. So why not bring it to the real world? So it started with that, and then quick story, I took over my parents' house to create the first interactive play out there in Chicago, where I grew up, and wrote a story in their house that was really the first one. In fact, if you look back over there, you can't really see it, but it's a newspaper clipping from 1996, when we did the first one.
Wow. So doing it in your house, when you create a story, do you look for a location first, or do you base a story off of the location? How does that work for you?
Well, every year is a little bit different. The first couple of years of the show, we're in the same location in an old mansion in West Adams. And that was the very first time I wanted to do it, I had an idea to find an old mansion. It was very specific to, I need to find this kind of old mansion, and I have a story in mind. It was kind of loosely formed in terms of its structure. It was, I knew I wanted to be turn of the century, so I had to find something that would kind of match that feel. And the second year was a sequel to it, basically. So it worked. It worked well in that respect. But the third year was a church. It was an old church. So I'm always looking for very unique locations, because the venues are characters inside of the story. It's very important that takes place. Otherwise, if it's just an office building or something like that, then to me it's on the producer side, it's very expensive because you're building everything from scratch, unless the story is tailored to that specific office space, the interactive theater office space. That would be that's immersive. So I have a lot of different stories that I play with over time, and then in the beginning of the year when I'm kind of looking for venues, I have whatever I feel in my heart that I want to do. I search for a venue that might match that story with a location scout.
Yeah. And so for you, what goes into developing a good story for a good theater setting?
Oh, it's a good story.
Yeah.
Well, to me, there has to be something really unique about it. The stories that I write are original stories, so something you're not going to be able to find anywhere else. There are no adaptations of anything else in what's original. But they need to exist outside of our realm, basically, for me personally. And I think for most of us probably listening, we all love fantasy, we all love horror, so we want to step outside of that. Just a good story is, in any medium, as I said, is something that you have to have a good storyteller. Number one, you can have a great story, but your storyteller, your actors, all your actors are weak, then the greatest story can die. So it really stems from that. I mean, Delusion is kind of known for really high quality actors, and that's where it well, that's not where it starts. It starts with the story in mind, and then the actors to fulfill that story properly.
Yeah. So when you find actors and you're writing the story, how do you try to balance the level between interactivity and theater? So when do you choose to have the audience simply observe the actors or have them interact and move around the environment?
Yeah, that's an important part of this, because of fatigue and pacing. Your pacing of your show needs to be such that you're not exhausting the audience, because a lot of people want to participate and some people don't, and you have to be able to progress the story either way. We've had groups that don't participate at all. That's always a little challenging for the actors to kind of get them going into it. But I like to give 3 or 4 major moments of choice for the audience to participate with, and sometimes you only need 1 or 2 people to push forward, and it's usually those people that help the energy with the other group to kind of get into it. I think by the time they're done with the show, everybody wishes they went back and they opened up a little bit more, so people do return for multiple times for that respect. But I definitely look at it as what's a good pace for this story. How long should it be? How physical should it be? I usually tailor it to pushing people. I'm okay with taking risks and pushing people, because that's memorable to me. So are lawsuits, but no, I mean, nothing interesting. There's nothing enduring about something that doesn't take a risk. So to me, it's pushing people to a certain level, and certain people within that group. But there's definitely many layers to a Delusion show. So if you're not interacting, you're still in it. You still have beautiful production design and great score, and the actors are spectacular. So it is like you're sitting there watching a theater production. You're not really participating, but you're inside of it. So it's something for everyone.
Yeah, I remember one of the biggest pieces of advice I got before going to Delusion was wear sneakers. And that was a great piece of advice. But going off of people who don't participate in the extra things you have as part of the theater production, what do you have in the story and in the environment for those who might not be willing to take the risks that still helps them understand the story and what's going on?
Right. Well, really for them, it's auditory, it's dialogue driven. But I try my best, and a lot of times I fail at this. Is like trying not to give too much dialogue. It's very hard. These actors are spectacular. It's very hard for them to have a scene with a dead audience member that just doesn't have anything right there. It's just blank stare, and you have to be able to convey this. There's many different ways to convey a story, but we really touch upon each one of them from dialogue, from the audio, from everything from escape room kind of things like puzzles and stuff like that. I try not to make puzzles too hard because it's not about escapes or anything like that. It's more just that helps unlock the story further. So there's many different elements to the narrative structure that help unlock certain pieces of the story. I will say that I don't expect everybody to get the story the first time. In fact, a lot of people don't. I'd say they get probably 65, 70% of the story. And I think that's an important key here is don't concern yourself too much with making sure that everything gets translated. Excuse me. Everything gets translated to the audience. That's not terribly important. If they get a great gist of it and they feel that their experience is transportive or otherworldly, then they'll want to come back and see it again, or they'll talk to their friends to fill in the story. And that's really about the interactive element. What we do is once you leave Delusion, they have that campfire kind of natural setting where they come together and this person over here did this. And so they will fill in the parts of the story for you. So I try to do that stuff so that the story lingers for time. I don't need everybody to understand everything. I try that. I mean, I'm a perfectionist. So I'm kind of like, I really want everybody to get everything I'm trying to do here. So every year I'm just so goddamn anal about it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So like, given that Delusion experiences tend to run a little bit under an hour, how do you keep the story moving the whole time so that it's not too cluttered or too sparse in one part or another?
Yeah, when building the story, I think an hour, first of all, for us, for what we're doing, it works very well because it's very physical. But when we're doing it, I try not to have a scene that's longer than 8 minutes in one space at the most. Sometimes it's a little longer, but they basically, I spread out the audience. We have groups of 8 to 10 that start off the show. And then they need to move through Act 1. And once they get to Act 2, Act 1 will start. So I got to make sure that as I'm writing the story that this progresses enough and the actors can feel the energy and they can hear sounds and cues from the show that's about to start that they have to get out of there. So they might have to do a lot of improv. In fact, improv is a key element to this because it's live theater. You never know what you're going to get from the audience, but they're on it and they make sure to move far enough away from the audience to start the next play. And I think that's key in terms of a moving play structure. That's what's going on here. Moving play structure is to make sure it's intimate enough and try to get the audience to feel as if they're the only people in this story, as difficult as it is because you're hearing things in different areas. You want the one group to be as far away from the other. So as I'm writing it, I'm making sure that they are, always progressing forward, never backtracking in the design of the show and the flow.
How does that work for the actors? What are some of their cues and stuff that can tell them to keep moving along?
Well, there's several. I mean, when rehearsals, they know the timing of this. We talk about it. They know to be here after certain time. I mean, there's also, I will say about the show, it's it's tailored. It has an original score. The score really, and it has embedded in it lighting effects and sound effects that are going to come whether you like it or not. So if you have to get to this part of the story because this wall is going to explode and you better get there. So there's definitely a score that helps them time the play as best they can. They also just over time they just know, they can just feel it. They just from doing it so many times. But I'd say audio is half the experience for us, not just for the audience, but also for the actors, spacing and all that, knowing where they are in the story. We have had times where one group is taking way too long, and the actor's going to bring their other guest into, let's say, the jungle. We did a whole scene in the jungle, and they're still in the jungle, and you can't get in there yet. So the actor will have to improvise for 2-3 minutes, and good luck with that. But it always turns out fine.
Yeah. What's your process for writing a story for an environment like that? Do you write the plot first and then add in the audience participation and the special effects, or do you kind of do it simultaneously as you go along? I
mean, in the early stages, I try to craft a story that is unique and different and something that I really love and that has unique characters within it, and then I decide whether what kind of character the audience is going to be. So that's really early on. It's very important to figure out like what do I want to be, and that goes back to the role playing games we used to play or the stuff that's going on now. I mean, we all want to we have an avatar. So what is your avatar? What is the purpose in this story, and how connected are you to it? And the audience is always a central figure. They're always the key element to surviving, solving these stories. So it's important that they have a very strong purpose and emotional connection to these actors. Even though, there are drawbacks to this as well too, just the emotional connection to it, because you do your best to connect, and that's where really solid actors come in. But to expect somebody to engage with somebody the way you really want them to can be a bit rare. But we do find these incredible moments where actors will hug, the audience will hug an actor and whisper something to them that they learned about them in a previous time period, like our last show. So there's really cool moments that audience finds themselves truly engaged in this, and it even inspired some fan fiction. So there's people that have written side stories to these journeys, if you will.
Yeah. So moving on a little bit, what are some of the biggest creative and logistical challenges of doing a show like Delusion?
Yeah, it's it's really challenging. Creatively, it's a lot of what we discussed already about engaging an audience in a story that you really want to tell, that you really want them to feel. That could be a challenge in this setting, given how relatively quickly you have to kind of move people forward. Give them enough time with somebody as you might want. And on that note, logistically speaking, you can't have in our structure, you can't have one actor staying with a group for too long, and that's really probably the greatest drawback is, in my mind, is if I want an actor to really stay with somebody to build the relationship with them, I have to triple cast them almost, and we've done that in some years. You triple casting an actor just to be able to keep that person throughout 3/4 of the play. That has a lot of challenges. Challenges that I think we can all probably understand who are in this industry, just from the amount of actors you can have, your budget, the type of actor. There's a lot of issues with that. Not to say we haven't done it, and we have, and it's worked out okay, but it's not preferable.
Yeah.
What was the other part of your question?
Oh no, yeah, I was just gonna continue off of that. What's the typical run time for a night for Delusion? Because typical theater shows have 8 shows a week, some 2 show days, some 1 show days. But how does Delusion run?
Delusion format is has traditionally been a new show every 15 minutes in a 5-hour block. So we'll have 8 to 10 people every 15 minutes. We'll do about 20 shows a night. The Blue Blade, the last show we did was that was 8 people every 20 minutes, just because we had some larger scenes that we needed more time in, so we have to give a little bit more space in between. So that goes to the business side of things, where it's hard to scale these type of events, just because you can only have a certain amount of people in there, and people love that, but it's hard to continue that when you're limited to 200 people a night, unless you charge a lot of money. So
yeah, the Blue Blade was actually the show I got to do, so that's been
that's right.
Yeah, fun memory for me as well.
You still have those shoes? You still have those shoes, or did you fall in the river?
I still have them, I think. I didn't fall in the river. Someone in our group did fall in the river, though. They weren't happy, but they had a lot of fun.
Yeah, there we go. There's a risk in them.
Yeah.
You make it wet.
Yeah, I think now we're going to try and move on and see if we have any questions from the audience.
Well, there's an audience? I thought it was just doing me. What?
Yeah, I know. That's the confusing thing about online. I think we're just going to wait and see if we have any questions right now for people to submit. But do you have any crazy stories from Delusion shows? Because I'm sure you get some crazy stories that you don't normally see in normal theater.
Yes, there are plenty of stories. Some of them not terribly appropriate for this venue, but I mean, God, it's interesting when somebody asks you that question. There's so many of those moments of something that you can't even pick out one for some reason. I mean, I'd say I'd be more curious to see like how your experience is. You went to the Blue Blade. Like, did you have any crazy moments in there that stuck out to you? And then while you're doing that, I'll think of.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not typically a big horror person, so I was really glad that the show we went to was more fantasy based. But I had no expectations going in, and I, like you said before, I felt like I was in a movie the whole time. The second we walked into the venue, I was transported. My friends and I still talk about different experiences we had that night. I remember one room we went into Nazi Germany, and I was just learning German at the time. And so the actor that was with us turned to us and said, "Does anybody speak German?" And everybody pointed to me. And I only knew how to say, "Hello, how are you? I don't know what you're saying." So I kept repeating that to the actors, and it was a little scarring, but still really fun. We have a question here. So how do you go about training actors to back off frightened audience members who are not having fun? Do you build in backdoor exits?
To be able to escort people out if they're too scared or too unruly or too drunk or too high in ecstasy. We definitely, I've had these actors for a while and I know that they can handle these kind of things. It's a feeling. You can feel the energy of somebody and see where they're at in their minds usually, and the audience, the actors will be able to engage with them, maybe tone down certain elements for that person, or maybe assign another audience member to watch over this person. Usually I don't like to have super confrontational actors in people's faces. I do believe that you need somebody to comfort you in some way, as strange as that sounds, throughout this process. So I like to have all actors assign, help, say, "Hey, you watch over this person, take care of them." But if somebody's really having a difficult time, there's always exit doors everywhere. They know how to drag them out, and if they do, they try to keep it within the story. They'll pull them to the side and whisper something to them, and all of a sudden they'll be swept away by this shadowy creature, and that shadowy creature is a PA. We have a lot of black cloaks, so they'll kind of whisk somebody away, and all of a sudden this person will be back on the street wondering where their friends are. So it all happens pretty quick, but that's a good question, because it's like, how do you not stop the flow of the story and keep people engaged, not let one person ruin that experience. Sometimes it's impossible. But we do our best to just make it quick.
Yeah, especially when you have 5 groups in a row. Next question. When your actors are having an improvised moment, do you give them any coaching on points to hit that might relate to the story?
Yeah, when we're going through the script together, we talk about the bullet points. What do you need to, just like you said, like what do you need to hit? You know, you got to hit this time. You got to talk about this time period. You know, you have to this actor. So they'll have their bullet points of making sure that they hit those things, because there are times when they got to hurry up because there's another group coming, and so they'll do their best to make sure the audience gets the necessary story in there. And if they can't sometimes, and they go to another part of the scene, they'll weave in the elements that they missed into their next scene, or sometimes it won't be possible. So that's part of what I said earlier, where you can't expect everybody to get everything, and that's okay. But definitely, everybody has in their scripts the key moments.
Yeah. All right, on to the next question. Are there any differences in writing for an interactive experience compared to the traditional passive audience themed experience?
The difference for me is, as I said earlier, was making sure that people have a purpose. Who are you? You know, an interactive experience, that's really true immersion into the story. I'm now taking on another character, as opposed to passive audience members. In a themed experience, you're along for the ride, and I'm not downplaying one over the other. They both have absolutely their merits. And a passive audience member going through a themed experience, I like we did a VR series called Delusion Lies Within, and it's a you're not interacting. It's not an interactive VR series. You're a passive audience member, but some of the most immersed people have felt was in that experience. So you don't necessarily, I'm not, as much as we do this interactive experience, I'm not completely married to making sure that it's interactive. That's always sort of a second step to crafting a compelling story.
Yeah. And you touched on VR, so our next question is, what are your thoughts on VR's role in the immersive theater space and how that role might evolve?
I'm exploring that currently, and I think it's interesting. It's still a nascent industry, the VR world, and I'm seeing some interesting potential. I recently did that, the Under Presents the Tempest show, and there's some cool elements in there, and some. It was interesting to see that format and how that might work. I think it's super interesting to have a live actor with you. I'm just at a different point where I also think about scalability. I think having a live actor, as wonderful as that is, makes it very, very difficult to expand this thing to across the world. So it would be cool to have these things as awesome niche experiences, but we'll see. It's just still so early. I'm seeing some promising stuff happening, especially some of the VR that I've been doing lately. With games like Half-Life Alyx, which is a really badass game. I think, and there's a lot of cool elements you can do. You can blend interactive theater with that type of experience. So I'm looking into that kind of work. I still think I'm still on the fence about VR. Personally, it just keeps going up and down. I'm not sure I'm totally sold on it just yet, to be honest.
Yeah. Next question. How do you find the ideal group size when designing the logistics of a show, such as finding the balance between a smaller, more personal experience or higher capacity numbers for an attraction?
Well, there's a lot that goes into that on the producer side of things, like your budget and how many people do you need to actually make this thing profitable. But stripping that away, because let's just focus on the creative. I mean, to me, it's especially with the type of show that we do. Some of them are tight spaces. The physical logistics of these shows force you to to really think about how many people you can get in a room. I mean, sometimes in the early stages, I'll get 8 of my friends. I have 8 friends, and we could bring them into a room and see what it looks like. So you definitely want to bring people in and see it with your own eyes, see what's ideal in this space. I've had times where I've had discussions with producers and other people about, like, just get more people in there, just go to 12 or go to 14. And I said, well, I've done this long enough to know that like 8 to 10 is, with what I'm doing, is the ideal number. It's not too little, it's not too much. And that plays into how great of an experience this is for people, how intimate it is for them. So that is super key to get that range down, depending on your physical limitations in your venue.
Yeah, I think we're going to take 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll move on. But okay, so what are your thoughts on jump scares?
My thoughts on jump scares. I mean, I like jump scares. I think going to a fun haunted house it's a joy, but it's not really my style. It's never really been I go for lasting psychological damage. So I think jump scares are a great little moment, and I totally appreciate them. We throw them in because that definitely gets people on edge. And I think just like some of the stunts that we do in the show, if somebody's flying through the air or dragging along a floor, those really get your blood flowing. So jump scares to me are great to place them within the story, make them a part of the story, not just for scaring in general. It's not, it doesn't serve the story. That's really what everything comes down to, is, does this effect serve the story properly? So I'm not against jump scares.
No one has. All right, and then last question here. I think they're just pulling it up. Have you had occasions where particular features of a venue inspired new components of a show?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I go into the venue and then I'll walk through the entire space and I'll write the story based on the space, and then I'll discover, wait a minute, this wall I can probably get rid of and expand this scene further into this crawl space, or can I use that attic over there? So it's the story when I first see the space is probably 20% done, and then the space dictates it's as if the venue itself is telling me, come here, I want to show you this, put this in your story. So I definitely feel that when I'm sitting there in the space. Sometimes it's so weird. Like sometimes if I'm alone in these venues, I get terrified. Like I'm kind of a scaredy cat. Like I get terrified of being alone in this space, and like I gotta get the hell out of here right now. And I'll like run out, lock the door. Like something was going on in there that I need to stay away from. But yeah, I get constantly inspired by these venues all the time.
Jumping back to before the Q&A, did you ever think of a fun, crazy story to share?
Oh, I got so immersed in our conversation.
I know.
I don't want to take up too much time. Let's see. Well, I don't know. Yeah, there's plenty, but I just say one time, I think in the Blue Blade, yeah, it was the Blue Blade. We had this giant stone creature who's I don't know, 7 feet tall. This Mayan stone creature, who we've affectionately called Brittany. That's our name for her. And Brittany's. I have this great creature effects designer named Jim Banky, and he does throughout all the years he does them. And this creature's like a giant Stay Puft Marshmallow. So you have the actor inside of it, sweating their balls off, and it's just they're just going nuts in there, trying their best to see, because you can't really see very well. But this creature was I wanted it to be a supportive creature, so it's guiding the audience through the jungle. And there's one part where Brittany is up against this Mayan temple, and everybody's up top of this ledge about like 3 or 4 feet up above Brittany, and Brittany's standing there, sort of standing guard over people. And there's one guy who's pretty drunk or high or something like that, and he's just staring down Brittany, and all of a sudden takes a stage dive. It just dives off the ledge, jumps onto Brittany with this big hug, and you see Brittany, this giant creature, slowly just come to the ground. Thank God he was completely padded. You can't get hurt, but the audience might. But this guy completely tackled a 7-foot tall lion statue, and he was quickly whisked away. But that was interesting. So yeah, delusion actors have to be ready for anything.
Anything, yeah. All right, so going into our final few questions. You've been a part of the immersive theater community for a very long time, almost since its beginning. How have you seen it grow from when you first started Delusion back in 2011?
Oh man, it is. That's a whole nother panel. Like,
yeah,
it's grown exponentially, and at the same time, it hasn't, because it's still more of a hobby than an industry right now. I've worked with other big companies that always try to bring more interactivity, more immersion, more intimacy to their experience, but they also say, I need 1,000 people through in an hour, you know. So, but in terms of this specific industry, I think it's really spawned. I've seen some incredible work over the years, and it's inspired people to find like really unique their unique creativity. And so there's interesting stories out there. I've seen, one thing I will say about this industry is I have seen, and I want to see more of this. Anybody who's listening who's creating these experiences, I want to just really press that this is supposed to be fun. Like, to me, it's just my opinion, but like, this is supposed to be fun. People are supposed to have a really good time, and being scared is also really fun. I am finding that some theater, it's not really totally my taste, is a little bit too dark and too serious. And it's just, I'm a little concerned that we're doing so much of that, where we live in such a serious world anyway. I would stress to people to kind of find their inner child and just stick with that, and put it out there. But that was, again, a whole discussion for another panel. But I've seen some incredible work, though. I mean, people have created, they're really pushing this industry forward. I mean, they're pushing it past Delusion. I mean, I know I have to play catch up, you know, with some of these people. They're such inspiring people. We're all really like feeding off each other at this point. Yeah, I'm seeing wonderful stuff. I think immersion, and the word immersive and the word interactive is getting placed into a lot of things right now. And I would also say, like, let's not saturate it too much with that word. I know that that's sort of a key word, a buzzword that people use a lot. And anything can be immersive if you have a good story. So
yeah, going based off
we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how have you seen the words immersion and interactivity grow a little bit outside of the theater industry in the past few years?
Well, it's just become this buzzword for in the corporate world in terms of making sure that everything is immersive. I think the cool thing is, and I had this discussion with a producer recently about something. Take something like the Nike store in New York. Like, that's not about selling shoes. These companies are not. Certain companies are not concerned. They're fortunate enough not to be concerned so much about making sure that they sell a product in their stores. It's the experience market. And that's really what is taking off from this as well too. That's one of the byproducts of what we're doing, is it's feeding into the larger corporations, where they just want people to have memorable experiences and to have their brand, you know, be part of that experience. So you're seeing a lot more of that happening, which is cool. Also, it can also be a little frustrating when you're working with it. I'm currently working on something, a project of a grander scale that is sort of that experience market as well too. It's all about the experience, and just embedding that in their brain. So that's cool, and you get a little bit bigger budgets with that. But I'm still just a fan of what we're doing in terms of the smaller, intimate shows. And I'm seeing more and more of that happening, and I love it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any advice for people trying to go into interactive or immersive theater?
I have a plan B. No, sorry, that was inspiring. No, I would say, I mean, it's tough. I mean, for me, as trite as it sounds, I can't do anything I'm not passionate about. So if it's something that really excites you and you know it, then you should do it. And again, I know, as I said, it's trite to say, but it really is true, because if you go into something and you're not really excited about it, you're just doing it for, maybe you need some cash and you need to do it, that's fine. But like, you're going to get your best work out of something your heart is really into. So find out what it is that you're most passionate about. Do that, and that will at least allow you to reach, the level, hopefully the level of creativity that you want, because that's where creativity comes from. It's from your heart. So stay true to that, and then your true nature and your true self will come out, and you won't have regrets when you're older. You'll be like, yeah, I actually did that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna do more Q&A right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some water.
Yeah. Take a sip. You've been talking a lot. All right. So our first question here: what are the keys to transporting the audience into your world?
Well, we touched upon a bunch of those here. Number one is, again, it's just your story. Like, how do you transport them? It's, I've read the most incredible books are some of my greatest experiences. So starting off with a very unique story, a unique venue. Our Blue Blades show had it looked like an abandoned theater. So helping to transport people into your world, the first thing they see is very important. And the first thing they see on your website too. So, you make sure you craft a website that matches your experience as best you can. I'd say really, I'd like to hear more music and things as well too. In your website, if you can have some music as well too, I think that's really helpful. And I think, that's another panel too. To me, sound is equally important as what you're seeing. So, your venue, how does it look from the very beginning? Helps out a lot too, to set the stage and set the mystery of it. An original score, and most importantly is just, please God, hire good actors. Like, really spend your time with them and hire the best actors you can possibly get. And usually in auditions, when I can tell pretty early on if this person has their heart in it. And I'll take someone who's going to learn along the job, but has a bigger heart than somebody who's been trained for a while and is a little more cynical about the whole thing. So, getting good quality actors, music, great first impression. I've been lucky enough to have, great designers behind me. We had the amazing Kevin Williams is an incredible production designer. He's pretty spectacular. So he's helped to create all these worlds, but we built up to it. I mean, Blue Blade was an expensive show. Building a time traveling show, I don't mind getting ambitious, and even to the detriment of the entire company. that show just destroyed us all. But was it worth it?
It was very much worth it, I think. For me, at least.
For you, at least. That's right.
Yeah.
I almost died. So, but yeah, I'm glad you were happy. I'm glad you had a good time.
Yeah, it was a fun experience. Next question. How much goes into the production of your sets and props?
A lot. Props are an interesting thing we should touch upon, because we have, like a game, like in role-playing games, I usually have this satchel thing going on in the show where it's basically your inventory in a game. So you're finding certain elements and certain props that you're going to be using throughout the journey. So those have to be, as authentic as we can. You find a really good designer, art director, production designer, and fabricator, and you really try to make these things as tangible and detailed as you can. It's just finding good artists, to be able to create this world from your mind. I mean, it really is like, I've worked in film as well too, and it's the same thing. The director comes in and you got to find the right person to kind of match the vision. So we put a lot of work into the production of all this, of the world you're in. And the props, as I said, I will say it's sometimes that's difficult, because you have to you use this one prop and you go through the entire show. Maybe you drop off the prop at Act 3, and then you got to make sure that prop you have enough to get back to recycle the whole thing. And sometimes we're losing props and like, what do we do? And that's where our big shout out to Venus Amora. She was our stage manager over there. She's like brilliant in that respect. And Jackie Cretterfield, who's here, part of the Midsummer, who's helped make these things function so well. So yeah, you got to get good people behind that, but put as much effort as you can into these sets and props. I will say again, like, it's going back to the actors, going back to the story. Like, prop can also just be like, a stick, and that it could be, you use your imagination. So just allow people to fabricate in their minds what this thing is you're holding. That's okay too. So it depends on how deep you want to go with it and what your budget is.
Yeah. Oh, next question. What is your favorite part about creating immersive theater?
The biggest high for me is when people come out of the show and you see their faces. They're just dumbfounded. They just like, what the hell just happened? I was completely transported, and every time it's difficult. And I always think back on those moments when people come out and they congregate and they have a story to tell each other, and it's euphoric. Like it's unbelievable to see, and that you're a part of something. You're part of this really cool, albeit small chapter of their life, that you've given them this moment to share with their friends. And that's amazing. That's one of the big parts of like how shitty this situation is. You can't get people back together again. Like, this is really, it's damaging to the soul and the damaging to the human connection. So that's cool to just see people together, because even pre-pandemic, 2011, when we first started, my biggest thing was I was seeing the disconnect of our society when people are just, with their phones, and as socially connected as we are, we're just more lonely, more disconnected. And a big reason why I did this was to bring people together, to be honest, because it wasn't like a big money maker or anything. It just, I got such a joy out of seeing people come together. That's definitely my favorite part.
Yeah. I remember getting a little scared for a second when we went to Delusion. We had to give in our phones for the hour we were inside. But at the end, like you said, we sat around and watched people come out for ourselves to see how they looked, so that we knew how we looked coming out. Next question.
It's so terrifying. It's terrifying when you got to go over your phone. I see people like, no, like the withdrawal. You're just like, the whole time.
Next question. Could you describe the audition process for immersive theater actors?
No, I'm kidding.
No.
Yeah, it's very much like a film or television. I have a casting director, and she'll read the script. We'll break it down. We'll break down characters, and I'll give her certain, like in Google Images, just people I'm looking, the kind of person I'm looking for here. But in terms of the process, once they're in, it's relatively simple to know if these, like I said earlier, to know if these people have what it takes to do this. I can tell if their heart's in it pretty early on. It's a standard. I start off with a standard read, give them sides and give me a read. And then I'll direct them a few times, give them a couple chances to play with it, just like a traditional acting gig. And then if we bring them back, sometimes for the first audition, I'll do this, but usually for the second, where I'll have them take one of the team members or other people that are waiting and take them on a small journey throughout the audition space. Like go from this side of the stage to the other, and in the middle there's a wall you have to hide behind, and you have to get this person to go and scout around the corner. So I'll create mini scenes for them and see how they interact with a real person, and then I'll have that person usually give them a lot of shit, like make it really tough on them, because that happens all the time. So how can they handle the stress of that? Because it can be very stressful for an actor. And then imagine that there's 8 of them. So you can tell, like, I roll the dice on a lot of people. Thankfully, if I do anything right, that's the only thing I do right, is pick good people to be in these shows, and they really bring it. and also we do, through our dress rehearsals and our tech rehearsals, they're constantly bringing groups through. I would like to do more of those kind of rehearsals because usually the first, like any other show, like the first couple nights are a little stumbling for some people, and that's to be expected, but
yeah,
that's kind of how it is.
All right, next question. How many times do you actually walk through the entire production before approving the final one?
Through the entire production before approving the final one. Well, that's just the process of the rehearsals. I mean, the dress rehearsal, tech rehearsal, we'll just keep rehearsing, and as we're going through, we'll do one scene, and then we'll repeat it multiple times and try to lock it down with all the different actors that are going to be playing within that scene. It's just it's a cumulative approach of working through the audition, the rehearsal process. I mean, how many times? Maybe we'll go through the show. We'll have 4 or 5 rehearsal days, which isn't very much, to be honest. But we'll do our dress rehearsals, and we'll have like a standard sized group. We'll be inviting friends and family to come in and work people through that. And we'll do a whole, like half a night maybe. So they'll end up doing, our actors will end up doing 5 plays in a row. See what your endurance is like. See what it feels like to do 5 in a row, and then to do 10 in a row. So the heavier actors, the people who are in more scenes, I usually double cast those. It's impossible for them to do 20 shows a night if they're in an extensive part of the story.
Yeah. Next question. How do you balance creating depth of a piece against allowing audience members to experience the whole, especially with limited runs?
Yeah, again, I think we talked a little bit about that. I have, as I said, like for me, there's a story I want to tell, and again, not to repeat myself too much, but if they're getting 60%, 50% or more of the story, and they're still coming out with a smile, that's a win for me. It's tough. It just depends. That's the beauty of this, and the difficulty of this is you're really trusting your audience to just let go of their inhibitions and to accept what the world they're in and to focus on it. I mean, then you also have the difficulty of, sometimes people are paired in a group with somebody else who's not as engaged, and they're drawing away from the experience as well too. So you try to make it as for Delusion, it's pretty fast paced. Like you're always in it, so you don't have much time to kind of process everything. But you're definitely getting the gist of everything. Like I said earlier about the actors, they hit their main points, but the effects also are an integral part of the story as well too. So if you're not getting it through some of the dialogue and some of the overall story, you are hit with some really spectacular story-driven effects as well too, not just jump scares like we were talking about, but at least if you're starting to disconnect a little bit, those moments bring you back in with your friends. And so that's sort of, if you visualize it, if you are being disconnected, then I do try to think about that. Like, are people maybe getting bored during this time? So maybe I need to cut down that dialogue. So I'm always playing to the highest, my favorite audience members, the ones like me who just want to get everything out of the story. So I'm always writing it for those people. But even if you're getting 50%, there's just lots of layers to this experience. So you're getting something out of it, no matter what, even if you like it or not.
Yeah. The next question: how do you handle an unruly or aggressive guest?
So from the very beginning, your stage manager knows what's going on with the group from check-in, from tickets. Our box office will relay a message to our stage manager like, hey, there's one person in this group that seems like they might be a little off. Let's just keep an eye on them. So it's pretty case by case. Like sometimes it's obvious this person's not getting in. You can't get in if you're drunk, but this person seems a little off. Let's just keep an eye on them. So from the beginning, we're watching them. The actors know who to watch out for as well too. And so we have cameras everywhere in every room, usually. Sometimes not every single room, but like, we trust our actors to do the right thing. But if we see something that's starting to get out of control, the actor's the first responder right there, so they'll be able to like whisk somebody away. But we do have security throughout the space that's following groups. As I said at the beginning, if you're finding somebody who's you have a bad feeling about, then security will be trailing that group for the entire play. So sometimes we just got to jump in with security and grab people. But that doesn't happen very often at all. Yeah.
Next, immersive theater has evolved a lot over the past few years. How has the type of audience it attracts evolved too?
Yeah, that's a good question. The audience has evolved greatly. I've noticed that over the years that, on one hand, for like delusion experiences, this might sound a little weird, but it's not. If you charge a little bit more for something and you really treat your project with respect in terms of its pricing, then people will, for the most part, will respect it more and see it as an experience that demands your attention and your respect. But the type of audience, a lot more people are getting involved in immersive theater. There's a lot more out there. So I'm seeing people in the good sense really starting to embrace that intimacy and like coming back into human connection. And I'm seeing people, the desire for tangible experiences like this is growing. It's only growing, and that's a beautiful thing. So the evolution of the audience, I'm very happy about what I'm seeing there. And on the flip side, there's also, people. This is the majority of people, but like they're feeling a little bit entitled to this experience, like a certain type of experience. And if I don't get it, then I'm going to quickly get online and trash this. And the evolution of social media as well too is like detracted from some of the from this as well too. But at the same time, it's helped. People put it out there, put the word out there, and it spreads like wildfire. But overall, yeah, the audience has been. I'm liking where it's going. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Next one. How much does ADA weigh into the creation of the story?
Yeah. I mean, we take over these old venues. Like for example, the mansions. You can't build an elevator get to the attics or something like that. So to be honest, they don't factor in too heavily because like through the fire department and police and all that, they understand the venue and that we can't build an elevator. We just have to have an equivalent experience for them. And to be honest, it's been almost impossible to have like an equivalent experience when you can't go to the second floor. You can't go up these stairs, but we do try to cater it. From the beginning in the website, we make sure people understand what type of play this is. It's like if you're going to go skydiving, you have to have a certain abilities. So this is an experience that you have to. You're expected to be able to run upstairs and crawl and climb sometimes. So we make sure that's put out from the beginning. But if people still come and they've come in crutches, and we have security or somebody else help them along, so we'll throw somebody in the group with them and help them up the stairs and protect them the entire time. So it's very individualized because we don't have very many people in wheelchairs or crutches at all. But anybody who's has any sort of disability or impaired in some way, we usually assign a production assistant or somebody to their group to help.
Nice. Right. And next, how hard was it for your audience to move from a horror-based narrative to sell them on a more fantastical sci-fi one?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I mean, from the beginning, I was like, I'm a lover of like old school horror and sci-fi and fantasy, and to me, that whole genre is just the same. I don't know. I might be completely wrong, but I feel like anybody who likes horror, likes sci-fi, they like fantasy. It's all kind of weaved into the same world. But we were our own worst enemy in some respect when we've been doing 5 horror plays, and then all of a sudden you come up with a more sci-fi oriented PG-13 kind of thing. And we didn't get much flack for that. I'd say some people were, oh, it's Halloween, you need to scare me more. I tried my best to make sure that we conveyed that from the beginning, that this was a more fantastical sci-fi story, in the vein of like Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was always about like Indiana Jones experience, because Indiana Jones has horror, romance, supernatural elements. So that's what this was. But it wasn't that hard to sell people on it, because once they went through it, they felt it, they understood, and they would tell their friends, this is still an experience that's otherworldly.
Right. Next.
Let's start with the website, though. You have, make sure it's clear on the website what to expect.
Next. Where do you find inspiration for your original stories? Do you have any advice for people looking to write their own screenplays?
Yeah, it's going back to what I said earlier, was like, it if you feel it. You can feel it in your heart and your soul that, like, if this is something that you're excited about, it just hits you. And it's this, for me, it's this your heart quickens, and it's a really powerful moment, and that is your trigger right there to be like, okay, well, this is something that's exciting for me, and I know there are a lot of people out there like me that like these same kind of stories. So so stick with that. I mean, inspiration for original stories, I mean, again, as trite as it sounds, inspiration will come in the strangest, weirdest ways sometimes, and from places you never quite imagined. The venues, when I go searching for venues, that's a huge inspiration for these stories as well too. I just feel like giving original stories right now, I want to see a lot more of that happening. It's more engaging, more exciting than adapting something else in my mind. But I read a lot, so I'd say, just like if you're an actor, you should be watching a lot of movies. If you're a writer, you should be reading every day, every single day. So I'd say make sure you have a book. Make sure you're reading every day. That'll definitely inspire you in some way. Next,
how would you translate immersive theater into an online setting?
Yeah, that seems to be happening in like I was saying about the Tempest experience and from Tender Claws. It's interesting. How would I do it personally? Well, I would suggest, this is the plug for the VR series, but I would suggest people watch the VR series if they can, and then see how, okay, well, this really is like immersive theater into a VR setting or into an online setting, but that's VR. But in terms of like flat screen online settings, I'm still in the old school vein of I don't know if it can translate that well. I know that there's been a lot of stuff out there, people have been putting out there for theatrical experiences on Zoom, and I commend that so much. I just don't have it in me to do that kind of stuff. I feel it just won't translate. It needs to be a different experience. But then again, I mean, look, it's like online immersive theater to me in an online setting is almost like playing these RPGs. I don't know if anybody's played this game like Myst or like Skyrim, and these big epic RPGs. Like, to me, that is immersive theater in the online setting. That's really what it is. But because you're playing a character. But in terms of like getting a group together to do this is still one technology like Oculus is still working on. We had Dreamscape and The Void. This is immersive theater into a digital world. But in terms of on your screen and online setting, it's still, I don't have an answer for that. I'm still exploring it and wrangling with that whole idea, especially like with this COVID situation. It's taken a toll on in my mind in terms of like how to translate that. Can it even be translated? It doesn't necessarily have to be. Maybe that's the thing, is don't think you have to translate that. This could be a completely new experience. And I'm writing a radio drama right now. That's that's how I'm translating some Delusion stuff into an online setting as well too, so you can listen to it in a podcast. Anyway, I'm rambling. Next question.
Hi, it's fine. Next question. When you're putting on a show from your years of experience, what's the best money you spend and what's the worst?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Good craft service. Keep the actors fed is good money. Best money is spent is on actors, production designers. What the things you're gonna like in film, you want to put your money into what's on screen. It's similar with this, I think. I think now I'm actually hearing like other crew members from Delusion's past saying like, "Well, I wasn't in the show, but I could have been paid more too." I'm not taking anything away from that. I'm saying put your money into what people are going to be seeing and experiencing, and I think number one would be the actors. Because again, if you have a great storyteller, we have this one. I always give a shout out to like Aaron Lyons. He's one of our Delusion veterans. Like, he's a great storyteller. Like, you put him in a room and just a room with a flashlight, and boom, you have an experience of a lifetime. So, put it in your actors. Make them feel, make them feel respected.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it for the Q&A, and we're going to go into the last question here. So where would you like to see immersive and interactive theater be 20 years from now?
I would like to see these experiences that we're seeing sort of grow and just become more of an industry, and people willing to pay top dollar for these experiences and to appreciate and respect it. So I'd like to see these kind of intimate experiences. I'd like to see cities embrace that as well too, and be able to permit these things properly and to understand this industry more and make it easier for artists to express themselves in this venue. Mm-hmm. But creatively speaking, I'd like to see a lot more, original stories and intimate experiences. Anything that keeps technology, keeps your hands, ready for action and keeps the human connection. So I'm hoping that, and I'm seeing it. I'm definitely seeing it with the previous question about the evolution of the audience. People are wanting to connect again with humans, and this is a very difficult time for that, for sure. Which the complete opposite of what we need to be doing. We need to be staying apart for obvious reasons, but it's damaging. So I'm hoping that we can come together, and that these experiences will create lasting friendships. We've had people get married from Delusion, or come back with their Delusion babies the next year, and there's nothing better than a human-to-human connection.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today, Jon. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. It's great to see you. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah. So we'll be continuing with more videos and chats throughout the day. But everyone should definitely check out the Delusion website. Yeah, that's all we have for today. Thank you again, Jon.